Hi, Bob the Canadian here. In this English lesson, I'm going to help you learn how to talk about yourself in English. And I'm going to do that by talking about myself. I know this seems a little bit funny, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to share over 10 things about me, 10 things about my life that I've never told any of you before in a previous English lesson. And as I do that, I will put the sentences on the screen so that you can see model sentences that you can use when you want to talk about yourself in English. Well, hey, welcome to this English lesson where you're going to learn how to talk about yourself in English by listening to me talk about myself. Before we get started though, if this is your first time here, please click that red subscribe button and give me a thumbs up if this video helps you learn just a little bit more English. There are a few things that you might already know about me. If you've watched any of my other English lessons, you'll know that my favorite color is orange. My favorite food is pizza. You might even know that I eat a banana almost every day. My favorite season is winter, and you might know that I speak two languages. I speak English and I also speak French. But what you might not know about me is that I'm afraid of heights. When you talk about yourself in English, sometimes you'll want to mention the things that you are afraid of. And the way you do it is by saying, I'm afraid, and then you mention the thing. I'm afraid of heights. I could also say, I'm scared of heights. I do not like climbing up to the top of tall things like this silo. So, I'm afraid of heights. You might be afraid of other things. Then you would say things like, I'm afraid of spiders, or I'm afraid of snakes, or I'm afraid of mice. I'm actually a little bit afraid of snakes. The second thing you might not know about me is that I'm a middle child. I have an older brother and I have an older sister. I have a younger brother and I have a younger sister. I am the middle child. When you describe yourself in English, when you talk about yourself in English, you'll want to be able to talk about your family. Maybe you'll say things like, I'm the oldest in my family, or I'm the youngest in my family, or I have two brothers and two sisters. Either way, when you talk about yourself, you'll want to be able to describe your family, you'll want to be able to describe your siblings, and where you fall in the birth order. A third thing you might not know about me is that I don't really like American television shows. I know, I'm sorry to all the Americans who are watching. I prefer television shows from Britain or from France. I don't really like American television shows. When you are talking about yourself in English, you'll want to use the same structure that I just used. When you mention something that you don't like, you'll want to mention something that you do like. It just makes your conversation more interesting. So you might say things like this: I don't like hot dogs, I prefer hamburgers. Or I don't like pizza, I prefer lasagna. I don't know who that would be though. I think most people prefer pizza. Anyways, when you are talking about yourself in English, you'll often want to talk about things you don't like, but then immediately mention something that you do. The fourth thing you might not know about me is this: I was born in Canada, but my family is originally from Holland. I am the son of immigrant parents. My parents came from Holland many, many years ago. When you talk about yourself in English, you'll want to be able to talk a little bit about your family history. You'll want to be able to talk about where you were born, and you might say things like this: I was born in Paris, France, and my family has lived there for hundreds of years. Or you might have a story that's a little more similar to mine. You might say, I was born in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, and my family is originally from Italy. So when you talk about yourself in English, you'll want to be able to talk a little bit about your family history and where you originally came from, or if where you live now is where your family has lived forever. The fifth thing I wanted to share with you is that I grew up out in the country. When you are having a conversation in English and you are talking about yourself, sometimes people will ask, where did you grow up? And common answers to that question would be, I grew up in the country, I grew up in the city. You might even name the city that you grew up in. So if someone says, where did you grow up? You might say, oh, I grew up in Toronto, or I grew up out in the country, or I grew up on a farm. The sixth thing I wanted to share with you is that I love technology. I have always loved technology. I remember when I was a kid, when I was 10 or 11, my parents bought a computer and I loved it. And ever since then, I have loved technology. It is one of my favorite things in the whole world. It's one of the reasons why I have a YouTube channel. When you are talking about yourself in English, you'll want to talk about something that you love to do or something that you love. In fact, I'm kind of curious, what do you love to do? What do you love in this world? Let me know in the comments below. I'm really curious. I don't know if I'll have time to respond to them all, but I'll definitely read them all. So, I love technology. What do you love? Another thing you might not know about me is that I drink coffee, and I drink decaf coffee. I usually have 1 mug of decaf coffee every morning, and I drink it from this mug that my friend Miroslav sent to me. I drink decaf coffee because years ago I had heart surgery, or a few years ago I had heart surgery, and they told me I'm not allowed to have caffeine anymore. And I used to love having caffeinated coffee. It would really give me a surge of energy every morning. But right now I just drink decaf coffee every morning. So again, I'm curious, what do you drink for breakfast? Maybe you have a cup of tea, maybe you have a cup of orange juice, maybe you have a really yummy cup of coffee that has caffeine in it, or maybe you're like me and you just have a cup of decaf. Let me know in the comments below. I'm curious. The 8th thing that I wanted to share with you is that I have never purchased a brand new vehicle. I always buy used vehicles that have very low kilometers on them. I do this because A, new vehicles are very expensive and I can't afford one. And B, I just think it's a better idea. A vehicle like this is kind of ugly to look at, but because it was cheap and it has very low kilometers on it, it will be a very reliable vehicle for me for years to come. So I've never bought a brand new vehicle. There's no real English lesson for this segment. Sorry about that, but one other thing about me, I've never bought a brand new vehicle. When I was younger, I used to be a construction worker. During the summers, I would work for my uncle. I would go to university during the school year, and when I came home, I helped my uncle build houses. I used to be a construction worker. When you are talking about yourself in English, it's cool to be able to talk about things that you used to do. I talked about a job that I used to have, and that is the sentence that you would use. You would say, I used to be a construction worker. I used to go skiing. I used to stay up late and get up really early, and it didn't have any effect on me. Unlike today where I stayed up late, now I'm feeling really tired. But yes, when I was younger, I used to be a construction worker. If someone was to ask me this question, Bob, what is your favorite thing to do? My answer would probably be this. I love reading. My favorite thing to do is to read a good science fiction novel. When you talk about yourself in English, you'll want to be able to talk about your hobbies. So you'll say things like, I like cooking. Or if you really like cooking, you might say, I love cooking. You might say, I like gardening. Or if you're like me, you might say, I love reading. But certainly when you are talking about yourself in English, you'll want to be able to talk about your hobbies and which one you like the best. I know all of you live in beautiful countries, but the country I really want to visit, the country I really want to go and visit someday is France. I really want to go to France. I've spent so much time during my life learning the French language. I would love to visit the country of France. Again, I apologize to all of you. I know everyone has a beautiful country and everyone would love it if I would come and visit, but if I had a chance, I would visit France. By the way, let me know in the comments below, if you could go on a trip this year, what country would you go visit? Well, hey, thank you so much for watching this little English lesson where I shared 10 or so things about myself, and I hope along the way you were able to learn just a little bit more English. Again, if this is your first time here, please click the subscribe button over there and give me a thumbs up if this video helped you learn a little bit more English. And if you have the time, why don't you stick around and watch another video.